We're joined by our panel this morning, the Shadow Veterans Affairs Minister Amanda Rishworth and Assistant Minister for Social Services Jane Prentice. Jane Prentice, first to you on this. Obviously, as I say, most economists thinking this is a bit of a glitch. It'll get back in the next quarter, but obviously a bit of a concern, particularly given the state of the budget more broadly.
Kieran, I just want to quickly say, and I know Amanda agrees with me, that our thoughts are with the people of Aceh at this dreadful time. Back on the economy, it wasn't good news, and there are a lot of factors. The economic analysts say that it's a lack of business investment, and of course business investment is governed by companies having confidence in what's happening. And the last quarter saw a lot of challenging times. We had our own extended federal election campaign, we had Brexit, we had the extended American campaign, and business investment is affected by sort of the need for confidence in what's happening in the market, and I think that probably is reflected in those figures. But it's definitely a time for us to support business and encourage them to invest. We need to invigorate that part of the economy. So there are some actions we need to take, and you know, if we're going to encourage business, we need to give them certainty. We need to look at company taxes, because if you reduce company tax, you drive growth, you increase investment, and you increase jobs. And that's not me saying that. That was Chris Bowen just a couple of years ago.
Amanda Rishworth, that's true. The Labor Party has done a bit of an about turn when it comes to company tax. And we know how sluggish things are. Is it time to reconsider that?
Well, if we look at the government's proposal on the table, what we will see is that it would only, by their own figures, add 1% of growth over a 20-year period. I mean, that is not a comprehensive plan for what they call jobs and growth. There is no plan by this government. In fact, what we've seen in this last year is just chaos and division within this government, more interested in their own jobs than the jobs of ordinary Australians, and that is why we're seeing, I think, a ship without a captain. And this is the problem that this government has, is that there is no one in charge of their economic agenda, no real comprehensive plan in front of them about where the economy might go, what we might do, what changes we might see. And that's clear even from their climate change policy, which they've now done a backflip, despite all expert advice about everything that points to important policy reforms, not only to achieve our targets, but also to invest in jobs of the future. But we've seen that within a 3-day period completely abandon any type of hope for reform in that area. So I think this is just symptomatic of the government having no captain, no one in control. And of course what we also see is Scott Morrison blaming other people. Well, it's time that he actually gets on and takes responsibility himself.
Jane Prentice, obviously the ratings agencies are looking at the budgetary situation, but is it time now for the government to step up what Mr Morrison himself has called good debt, to the extent that there should be more spending and public-led spending in terms of infrastructure to try and give the economy a bit of a kick-along?
Well, we have got an infrastructure agenda on the table, and the Treasurer has always said that we need to spend on infrastructure for jobs and growth, but we also need, it's not just government, we need to take business with us, and that's where we need to give confidence to the business sector. At the moment, Labor Party is nothing but relentless negativity. Every proposal, there's a problem with it. They don't support any of our proposals. They're even prepared to contradict themselves just to be negative. So what we need to do is work together to make sure that we can give business confidence. Business is a sector that really drives growth, that really creates jobs. It's not government. So we need to look at cuts to company tax so that we can increase investment. And that's
okay.
Where,
well, I'm going to discuss that with the Treasurer at length. That's coming up on the program. I do want to put that point though to Amanda Rishworth in terms of Labor's responsibility here as well in the broader savings efforts. Do you accept that this, given the sluggish growth, the outlook, and the ratings agencies like SP watching so closely, that it's incumbent upon Labor to also work with the government for more savings heading into the new year?
Well, I'd like to make 2 points. Firstly, we have supported the government's savings when they have not taken an axe to middle Australia. We will not, though, sit by and let the government attack things like Medicare, our schools, and a whole range of other important areas that support the Australian people. That is not going to lead to good economic outcomes in the long term. So I'll make that point. The second point is that the government itself, when it came to, for example, the backpacker tax, refused to deal with Labor. They would prefer to horse trade with the crossbench than actually sit down and work with Labor. Now, Labor has put many proposals on the table, including our paring back of negative gearing. That's a policy that, if the government was serious about working together, then they would actually take up. The battle within Australian politics at the moment is not with the Labor Party, it is within the Liberal Party. There is clearly division, chaos and war within the Liberal Party at the moment, and that's the problem the government's had, and that's what's not giving business confidence.
Jane Prentice, in terms of that internal conflict, we saw it erupt with the former Prime Minister Tony Abbott, his remarks in relation to the prospect of a carbon price, even though Malcolm Turnbull has never said that was in train. This was only a review, references to it by the minister on Monday, and then forced to capitulate 48 hours later. Jane Prentice, it was a pretty ugly handling of that particular situation.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of froth and bubble over something which was actually already in train, which was the standard 2017 review of the climate policy that was always on the table, but everyone sort of overreacted in advance and tried to preempt what is going to happen, hopefully in an orderly way. And we need to evaluate the climate policies and their success or otherwise. The biggest issue is we need to make sure that energy prices stay low for the people and for business in Australia.
When you say everyone overreacted, are you talking about Mr Abbott and Senator Bernardi? Is that
no, I'm talking about the media, the Labor Party, scientists, everybody. Everybody jumped into the pot on that one, and it was really just an announcement that the review was going to take place next year. The review will cover all aspects of climate policy, but once again, people tried to pick off aspects. Well, I think the media had a look at...
I should say the review's not going to be covering all aspects of climate policy. It's going to be covering few now, given how much the government's ruled out.
Well, and that's my frustration with this, these attacks on aspects of, when we announce a general review, everyone sort of, or not everyone, people pick off bits and pieces. I would like to see reviews left as a genuine review, so everyone can have a calm and measured conversation. But because of the overreaction by some people, we've had to rule out particular aspects of it.
Well, Amanda Rishworth, your reflections on the end point here, because Alan Finkel, the chief scientist himself, is promoting, apparently, according to the reports by Phil Curry today in the Financial Review, that he's going to be putting this to the COAG Prime Minister and Premiers tomorrow, that there should be an emissions intensity scheme for the power sector.
Well, look, obviously what we've seen is once again the division on display within the Liberal Party. And when Jane says there was overreaction, it was Cory Bernardi, Tony Abbott, Craig Kelly. I mean, it was people within the Liberal Party that completely ruled this out and said that it wasn't going to happen. And then the Prime Minister caught up with them. I mean, that's actually what happened. But in terms of what we need to do to meet our targets, but importantly transition, then we should be listening to the experts. And of course, Jane mentioned that she wants to see lower electricity prices? Well, by ruling out any price on carbon, any emissions intensity system which reduces emissions in an orderly way, by ruling that out, you actually have the threat of higher electricity prices. That's what Alan Finkel and other experts have said, that it will lead to higher electricity prices. So rather than actually trying to look at the outcomes of what's needed, the Liberal Party and the government have immediately ruled out a process that could indeed lead to lower energy prices.
Well, OK. And Jane Prentice, Jane Prentice has conceded that, well, it is frustrating that the review isn't able to do its job with the breadth of focus that you would like to see. Do you concede in a political sense it looks like that the Prime Minister has capitulated once again to the elements of the right within the party who are opposed to any sort of carbon pricing or market mechanism here?
Well, Kieran, at the end of the day, we know that carbon tax doesn't work.
Sorry, Jane?
I mean, yeah, carbon tax. The Labor Party brought in an economy-wide carbon tax which shoved up the prices of electricity to the extent that they actually brought in compensation packages for families across Australia. Everything went up in price because of what they did to the economy through their carbon tax. So clearly, I think we've had a very good example of why that doesn't work and why that part of it should be ruled out. But we do need to look at other avenues, because energy prices are absolutely crucial to businesses, to investment, to the people of Australia. We must keep energy prices down, and so we shouldn't be doing anything that will force them up. I think we need to look at other alternates as well. I mean, why isn't there a conversation, for example, about nuclear energy? If you want clean energy, if you want cheaper energy, why isn't that a conversation that we're having as well?
Jane Prentice, appreciate your time. Amanda Rishworth, we'll talk to you soon. A quick break.